Hey, everybody. We're here for the new episode of Five for Talking, off-season episode. I'm here with Caps, the captain of the show. It's free agent frenzy. We're going to go over everything that happened. We waited till now because we figured things are done. I mean, there's still some hot gossip going around. We'll get to that later in the show. We're going to start the show with Leafs. I will cut the show so you will know when to. It's going to NHL. You could move it. You could do whatever you want. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. So we're going to talk about the Leafs here. So just in terms of players that they lost, what do you think? Not in, with zero inclusion of the new people from players they lost. Who was the most impactful loss?
I mean, the ones that hurt were Achari, Ryan O'Reilly, but I think the one that hurts the most is Luke Shen. Like I because when I'm looking at the playoffs, like one of the better performers and the one that pretty much stepped up the most, and me and you called it because he was on the top line, deservedly so. Like he's supposed to, that's where he would fit the most, but he stepped up the most, and I think that one hurt the most. Um, but good on those guys for signing on other teams for more money. I think you know what. To be honest, the one that hurts the most is Justin Hall.
Yeah, okay. We also
Yeah,
lost Kerfoot and Bunting. But
we did.
we'll get through everybody. Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen. I Obviously Ryan O'Reilly is like legit star power, right? And Luke Shen had a great postseason. We talked about that at nauseating length, but neither one of them wanted to play for the Leafs. And if
Yeah.
that's how you feel, then I'm glad that you're gone because I don't want to have you sucking up money from the cap to not try here because you don't want to play here, you know? They both said that they did not want they had zero plans of resigning here no matter what the contract was that was given to them. So, I mean, let it
It still
be.
hurt.
Yeah,
Um,
it hurts the team. I get it, but it's like
yeah,
I would rather have people that are here for the to try. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, no one's saying that they didn't try during the playoffs. I mean, they I think they did their best, but you're absolutely right. If you don't want to play for the team long after the playoffs, and yeah, why beat a dead horse?
Okay, so that being said, what are your thoughts on Bunting leaving?
I think going forward it was the right decision. I just didn't think I can't see Bunting as a first line player. Sorry, I can't. But good on him for getting more money on another team. He played well, but it just got to a point where he had a target on his back, and the refs were always looking out to punish him any way they can, and I think that just hurts the team.
Yeah,
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I would not have paid him.
No,
He's not even remotely worth what he got paid. Um, and it would have hurt us. I I I genuinely feel like it was I know I was a right fan of Bunting. I preferred Bunting over Hyman. We knew about that right when it happened. We all had these feelings. But like watching him play last season, you could see that it stopped being about him as this role player helping Matthews and Marner, whoever line he was on, and it became about him scoring goals. He wanted to be the guy. And it was either a case of he felt like he was better than he was, or he knew a contract season was coming up, so he wanted to try as hard as he could to make sure he got paid the next year. Because like it was defensively, he just wasn't there. The guy that we saw the previous season didn't exist last year,
yeah,
and I think it hurt. And I think segue that perfectly into Kerfoot. I don't know what the hell Kerfoot was doing last season, but it was not the Kerfoot that we had seen in previous seasons. It was like he just forgot how to play hockey.
I mean, he was always going to be the talk of, being that guy that was going to get traded at the deadline, or at some point he was just going to not get re-signed by the team. He was one of those guys that was just not going to come back. I'm indifferent about Kerfoot. I mean, he was okay,
Yeah, I
but
agree.
I still think that $3.5 million a year could be used for something better.
Yeah. I mean, Achari is to me was the biggest loss, like in terms of like impact and like what we were paying him for what he was doing.
Was really hoping that he'd come back, but
Yeah, but I mean, okay, let's talk about the people that they did get. Um,
he's not going to
I
talk about Justin Hall.
okay, you want to talk about him? Let's talk about him.
You know
Is this
what?
the is this one of the happiest Leaf moments ever in Leaf
I
history?
I will say this. I mean, good on him for getting that contract. I mean, that was a shock of all shocks. Um,
He was Bret Harted throughout the playoffs. And if anyone doesn't get that reference, it's to a match that Bret Hart once had with a wrestler that was an absolute doo-doo fest. And after the match, that wrestler was thrown a massive contract and pushed to the moon because of what everyone around him was doing for him. It turns out he was not very good. So he got this huge contract, Justin Hall. Well, not huge, but he got a big contract. And they're going to quickly find out that he's not that guy. Um,
could you imagine if he does become
oh
that
my
guy?
God, I would love it. It would be.
My gosh.
I love when people do that to us. You know, 5 for talking. What's that? Uh, but I think the moves that they made in return, the pickups they made in return, not only addressed a lot of what they lost, but added each one of them adds a physicality that the people we lost did not have. Except Klingberg. But I think the Klingberg thing is just to try something new, or maybe later to use him as a piece, or maybe they're planning on moving a Brody or someone, right? Because he's very much another Brody or another Riley. So we'll see how that goes. I do like Klingberg. I think he's pretty good. He was one of the better offensive defensemen when he was in Dallas.
I just don't think that that's what the Leafs need, though.
It isn't, but he's better than every other defenseman that we lost in terms of raw ability. He's not a better. He's not a replacement for Shen in terms of what Shen does,
Yeah.
but in on raw ability, he's a better defenseman.
I mean, I really hope that throughout the summer that he works on his defensive game a little more and he's able to incorporate that with his offensive abilities because I do think he's a very gifted offensive defenseman.
Yes,
Um, but he's got to learn how to play defense a little more. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Um, it'll be interesting to see who he gets paired up with.
It's going to be
Um,
Brody probably.
well, okay. Well, now that you brought that up, who gets paired with Riley? If you're going to put Brody with Klimberg, who goes with Riley then?
Probably like
Because I would be
Lilgren.
very nervous putting McCabe with Riley.
It's well then it's got to be Brody Riley.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Brody Riley,
And
McCabe, Klingberg, and Lilgren and Giordano.
yeah, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I still think that they're not done. I still think that there is another trade that's going to happen. I don't know that they're going to be looking for another defenseman. Um, that's what I think.
Well, we know about a
Um,
talk, which uh we'll wait till that. We'll wait to talk about that because I want to
yeah,
segue that into NHL talk. They added Reeves,
yeah,
uh,
they added Reeves,
a pest, a
Bertuzzi.
bully.
Yeah,
I think you kind of need it. You need someone in the playoffs to throw out there and say beat that guy up. Um, sorry,
but
I
you
know
know what,
NHL doesn't
Campos?
like that now, but
like you know what, Campos, I still believe that the Leafs could have gotten Reeves for a bit cheaper.
A lot cheaper.
You know what I mean? Like,
Are you telling me that he's worth that much? You're absolutely
no,
insane.
no, he's
Um,
not.
they also, I think, I don't want to say he's not that good because he has a potential to have an absolute breakout season, but I don't think that Bertuzzi's worth that much either. Especially after last season. He was just okay last year.
I didn't think that Bertuzzi had the opportunity to be really good because he was so far down in the depth chart on Boston. Um, I mean, you know for a fact that he's going to be on the first line this year.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Like,
he's gonna kill it.
and it sounds stupid because like I'm not a Max Domi guy, we know this, but I think both of those guys bring in the goal scoring that we lost with the people that we lost, and also add a grit and physicality, kind of a dirtiness that we don't have. I think if anything, this team is just a lot dirtier. And I don't mean that in like a bad way because you kind of need that come the playoffs, right? That's what
Yeah,
we've always been missing. But they're like, I'm gonna come out here, I'm gonna slew foot you, I'm gonna give you a cheap shot, I'm gonna face wash you after the whistles. These are the guys you're bringing in. But I wouldn't even mind Domi on that first line because we know Domi, given the right situation, especially playing with if you're playing with Marner or Nylander and Matthews, you're gonna score goals.
it's a
Um,
possibility. Yeah,
Bertuzzi is a much more gifted player, I will say, at least from what we've seen. Um, but you wouldn't lose by having Max Domi there, and a Bertuzzi, Nylander, Marner, Tavares line is a pretty sexy line, right?
yeah. I just think that the only advantage Domi has on Bertuzzi is that he plays center, and because of the fact that he plays center, I just feel as though that Domi is probably going to be like the third line center. I
Possible.
think. Um, you know, you bring all you talk about all these qualities that these guys bring. They're definitely going to be harder to play against because of the toughness and grit that they bring. However, um, I don't, I don't, I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them being pretty good defensively. Um, you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see. I will say this, Campos, and I don't know if you agree, but in recent years we expect uh, what the Leafs are going to be throughout the season because the roster pretty much stays the same. But this is probably the first time in a while that things are going to be very exciting because it's you got a lot of new faces and the identity is going to be a bit different from recent years. So it'll be interesting to see, and I think Reeves's main responsibility is to bring the team together, but also to get some of those stars to start pushing back as well in the toughness department. And that'll be interesting to see. I don't think you'll see a lot of it during the season, but come playoff time is when we'll really see what these guys are made of.
Yeah. So I mean, I agree with everything you said. I just want to quickly talk about the Samsonov situation. Um, what do you? I'm kind of worried. I'm not even gonna ask you. I'm just gonna say things. What I'm a bit worried for two reasons. One, if he does end up having a really good season, there's 0% chance you're getting him back next year because he's gonna get paid.
Mhm.
And the other side of it is he's upset that you didn't pay him what he wanted and you made him go through arbitration to get far less than he wanted, and now he's not going to try for you.
Yeah, I've heard that argument before, and it's sometimes when you are not getting paid the money that you feel are getting paid, you're getting paid. You don't really try as hard. I really hope that he doesn't become bitter. Um, I'm hoping that changes. He might come out of the gate feeling that, but I'm hoping that changes throughout the season. Um, he did get like a what $1.5 million raise.
Yeah.
Um, maybe just a little bit more than that, but he's gonna have to get over it, and he's just gonna have to just play because he knows that if he plays this year and he has a really good season, he's going to get paid next year.
Yeah.
So he needs to get over it. He needs to get over it and think about the big picture.
I got two things that I don't want the Leafs to do. I don't want them to stick with him if he's playing poorly. I want them to move off him quickly and not baby him. And if you have to trade him, you have to trade him. And then on the other side of it, if he's playing well, I don't want them to be like, well, he's not going to be our guy next year. Let's play Wall. No, if you believe in him, you got to play him. So I mean, there's two sides to that, like I just said, and it's like you have to figure out which one you're going to be. You can't play Wall if he's playing well, and you can't play him if he's playing poorly. So, and I know the Leafs are kind of, at least we can tell from Brendan Shanahan, he's a kind of spiteful, revenge fueled man that maybe he's upset about Samsonov and is just going to say, well, you're the backup this year and we're going to play mediocre Wall for now. As you can tell, I'm not a big Wall fan.
It's definitely kind of nerve wracking. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I'm hoping that he comes out of it thinking about the big picture, because these guys got a legitimate chance next year as well, man. I mean, we've been saying that for the last few years, but he needs to just move forward, get over it, just move forward, man. With the Matt Murray contract, I mean, the Leafs were put in a position where, because of the fact that he went on LTIR, they had a little bit of leverage to give Samsonov a little more money. I think ultimately 3.66 was the number that they were looking at,
Yeah.
And it just fits. And, let's see how it goes.
So I'm going to segue here into the NHL. But I'm going to leave you with three questions to answer as we go there. So to make cap space, we've talked about this. There's two options here. So there's trying to move Brody option. That's number one. Number two is the Nylander situation. And apparently, like we've talked about this as well, Colorado is super, super interested in picking up Nylander. And apparently as Nashville as well. And Nashville has got Riley and Luke Shen, which we'll talk about that as we segue here. And the third thing is, in the Carlson rumors, the Leafs are keep getting talked about. I thought, this is just a ha-ha situation. No, it's still going. It's hot right now. It's super hot on the internet. Give me all three of your takes on these things, and then that'll bring us into NHL.
Okay, I'll answer. Here's my argument for the Carlson thing. I just don't understand it. I don't know how it fits. You're gonna have to give up a lot to get Carlson.
Especially because you're still $2 million over.
Exactly. Not because you want to, it's because you have to in order to make that contract fit. And, a lot of things need to happen. First and foremost, San Jose needs to retain some of Carlson's contract, and they probably won't.
What I see is that they'll involve Arizona in a 3-team trade.
The second thing is they need to get a third team involved to retain salary. And I just don't see like another team being like, that's your problem. Like
Arizona will do it.
You know what I mean? But it just doesn't make sense to me at all. It doesn't. I don't know where he fits. I don't know how you make that work. He's not the type of defenseman that the Leafs should be looking for. Ultimately, that's just my opinion. And I just don't see how it's going to work. Ultimately, you're going to have to give up some key pieces. And I just don't think you have enough depth in your roster to replace those key pieces that you're giving up. I don't know what you think about that.
I would love to get Carlson. I just don't think it's going to work. Um, that is what that is. I do fully think though with the other two things I said, which we'll get you to talk about that right now. Um, I do think Nylander or Brody is getting moved.
I think Brody more than Nylander. Um, I think the Leafs still want to keep those top two lines intact. I don't think like if the return is not to their liking, I just don't think it's going to happen for
Yeah,
Nylander. I think
I think
they'll be a little more
goes.
open to Brody leaving and not getting much of a return than Nylander being the one to go.
I think what you're gonna see is what is Brody's contract like 4 million?
I think Brody's I think it's about 5.
Okay, so it's like four. Yeah, it's like high fours, I think. And regardless, I think what you're gonna see, and I actually have like researched this significantly, not for what we'll get, but I think what you're gonna see is Brody packaged with a draft pick headed to a team that will retain. They'll what the Leafs are going to get back is a similar contracted defenseman, maybe a little bit less, where whatever team is going to retain some for that draft pick, and it's going to be a stay-at-home physical defenseman that is going to end up playing with Riley. So I don't know who, I don't know what team, but it's going to be the retention that they'll hold is going to be exactly what it takes to be cap compliant. So if they get back a guy that's 4 million for Brody's 5 million, let's say, they're going to retain 1.2 million of that contract for the draft pick.
Well, and I'd be more open to that than giving away Nylander. I mean,
I agree.
yes, it sucks that he's more likely to be he's going to leave. Like they're not going to give him the $9 or $10 million that he wants,
No,
or
he to me
10.5.
he's worth 7.5 million.
Yeah, he's and it sucks that he's going to have to leave. They're going to have to let him walk without getting anything back from him. But you know, they got to think about the playoffs next year, and they got to think about who's more valuable to the team at this point, and it's Nylander in comparison to Brody.
Oh, I agree with that 1000%. Okay, so on that note, we'll segue into NHL here. I don't have that much, but I think there's just a few talking points. So signings and otherwise. So I'll go through a couple of the ones that I felt were pretty large. I really see Columbus is really trying right now
Mhm.
to build something. And so the first trade we have here, this is way back in June, but Ivan Provorov goes to the Blue Jackets from Philadelphia for a bunch of random stuff. And then the Kings basically get back uh, players that reduce their salary cost. And I think for the Blue Jackets, I'm not sure what they're trying to do, but clearly they're in on this season. They got Goudreau. They don't want to back out. Next, the Avalanche picked up Ryan Johansson for Alex Galchenyuk, who the Predators immediately cut. And at first I didn't get this trade because I don't know how much Ryan Johansson brings to you if you're Colorado. He's at this point like a third line center, and he's not super as impactful as he was on either end of the ice. And the Predators got nothing for this. I know it's a salary dump, but why were they salary dumping?
I mean, I haven't really looked into that much. Maybe they need to forward Luke Shen and Ryan O'Reilly. I'm not too sure. Um, I think just Colorado's just trying to get some of their key pieces back from a couple of years back. Um, uh, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a
Well, okay.
good
Well,
question.
they did get Riley and Shen. O'Reilly and Shen. They also cut Matt Duchene to cut more cap, who ended up signing to the Dallas Stars, which is like Dallas is
Yeah.
also all in this year. I think this season for the NHL is going to be really interesting because a lot of teams that you on the high end are pushing even harder, and a lot of teams on the low end are like all in. Like Ottawa right now is completely all in. They just signed Vladimir Tarasenko. They also made the Kublik move, so they traded Alex DeBrincat to Detroit and got back Kublik and a prospect and conditional draft picks.
I
So
got Corpusalo.
and they got Corpusalo. So I Ottawa's all in, man.
They just gotta blend it all together and just see if it's gonna work. Um, they lost the Prinkat, didn't they?
Yep, they traded DeBrincat to Detroit and they got back Kublik, which is a good player. So
I think some of these teams like that finished at the bottom of the standings last year, they've gotten better. It'll just be interesting to see if they got really good.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Like Columbus, Detroit, Ottawa. They need to have really good starts to the seasons to, you know, really push for a playoff spot because of the fact that Toronto, I don't think Tampa that much anymore. Carolina, side note, I think Carolina wins the cup next year.
We keep saying that, so
Just based on the moves that they made, Orlov, all those guys. But anyway, um, Jersey's going to be sick next year.
yeah, New Jersey made a lot of moves.
I think Boston falls a little bit.
New Jersey added a lot of grit. They got Colin Miller, they got Tyler Toffoli. I think that's kind of what they were missing, right? And I don't know. There's a lot of interesting teams like Boston. Bergeron retired. They lost couple pieces. They traded Taylor Hall and Lou Ferrigno to the to the Blackhawks
Right now,
for Ian Mitchell and Alec Rugula. But
they lost Bertuzzi.
they lost Bertuzzi. But
Krejci left.
if you look at their roster, they're still not a bad team.
They're not a bad team. I think I don't think they're as good as last year.
No, it's a
But
step
they're still a good
backwards,
team.
but they're not. They're still like a playoff caliber
Yeah.
team.
Yep.
So I don't think you lost a lot in that situation. I think a lot of teams are starting to even themselves out, and we'll see
Yep.
how that goes. In terms of just signings, you had a lot, right? Like the Aho contract is really good, and I think it sets the tone for like a lot of stuff coming. He got 9.75 for over 8 years.
And they're
And
still under the cap.
but that's an amazing contract to me. And that
Yep.
to me sets the tone for what Matthews and Marner should be doing for their
Yep.
next contracts. They don't have to be long term. You take 10 million, 9.75 like this for a 3-year contract, and then you're still going to be young. You're still going to get paid after that.
I mean, you're absolutely right in terms of what Matthews and Marner should be doing, but Nylander at the end of the day, he's not going to do that because at the end of the day, he's going to be like, "Why are those guys getting paid and I'm not?"
Because you're worth
That's
$7.75 million.
not in his eyes. Even though I agree with you, it's just.
Oh, Carolina
But
also
anyway,
got Bunting.
they got Bunting, they got Orlov, they re-signed Anderson. They got some.
Did Pacioretty sign anywhere?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but he did sign somewhere.
I'll check it.
Check it right now. You know, it would be cool, man.
Washington.
I mean, is it Washington? Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of these teams, like even Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh is still on the Carlson.
Okay, so let's throw that Carlson talk out there. He's probably the biggest person that's still available. I heard there's a lot of rumors that Logan Couture is available. Then there's like people trying to get him. Boston wants Logan Couture.
I think Matt Dumba is still on the hasn't been
Matt
signed
Dumba,
yet, right?
yes, good. That's a good one. That one is like, but he's probably wants money.
Probably wants money, but nobody's willing to give it to him because he had
I would
a
like
bad
him
year
on the
last year.
Leafs.
It'd be crazy, yeah. It'd be awesome.
But anyways, Carlson, all the teams he's being talked about, like linked to, don't really have cap.
Which
Pittsburgh is one of the biggest ones.
Yep.
But when I look at Pittsburgh's roster, they don't have anyone that they can dump that will make room for that, unless you're dumping Crosby or like one of those guys, right? Like nobody's contracts are big enough unless you're going to make a trade 6 players to get Carlson, and then you have to fill all those spots somehow.
I mean, Kyle Dubas is very creative. Be interesting to see what he comes up with. I probably see Letang being in on that deal.
Yeah, build for the future.
But it's my understanding that Crosby has a say in what goes on around there.
Well, he wants Carlson, apparently. He's been
Now,
very vocal about them trying to get Carlson.
I mean, the other team that Carlson's been linked to is Edmonton. I don't know how that's going to
But
work.
that's another situation,
You know what I
right? And
mean?
then the fourth team, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was is also in a similar situation where there's no way uh, they're going to be able to pull it off. I heard rumors that the Islanders are also linked to him.
Yeah.
They don't have cap space. Where would you like to see him end up? No salary cap thinking about it. And it's not going to be the Leafs, so let's not do
Oh,
that.
I was going to say the least for a league minimum of 750,000,
Yeah,
but
it's not.
um, selfishly, nowhere. Stay in San Jose because I want my team to win. But
I think the Kings have a legit shot, or maybe even Dallas.
be right down the road from him,
Yeah.
for LA. But Dallas, that would be interesting. See if that can work. But like a lot of these teams are, you know, they don't have a lot of space in the cap. It's that's tough. It's tough, and it would make more sense if they would just wait until next year because the cap goes up an additional $4 million. A lot of teams can play around with that, but man, I don't know. I don't know. Selfish. Maybe Edmonton, but I just don't know if that'll happen.
I mean, Edmonton's been making a few little moves here and there. I think they need a goalie. Um, we know still Hellebuck is out there. We know Scheifele is out there, whatever's happening with Scheifele. And apparently Lindholm is out there. And that's a really good pickup. Boston's also been linked to Calgary with Lindholm. And I think getting him to replace Bergeron is huge, or would be huge for them. They would immediately be back as one of the contenders if they did that.
Any team that picks up Bucket just becomes like immediately so much better.
Oh, yeah. You're talking like a top 3 goalie of the last 10
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I don't think he wants to play in Canada. I think that's one of the things that he said, right? If I
I
remember
don't
correctly.
remember exactly, but he's gonna leave. If the only Canadian team that was gonna take a shot at him is probably the Canadians, and they'll probably have to put Carey Price in that deal to
Yeah,
be cut out of
but I haven't
contract.
really heard much talk about Bucket, like in terms of teams being interested. Like I know there's teams being interested, but I just haven't really heard much
Yeah,
about it.
because there's the teams interested are not cap friendly
Why?
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Devils have been linked, but they would have to give up Vanacek, and his contract's not big enough, so you'd have to throw in a couple other things. And at that point, is that trade really worth it? I know he
Mm-hmm.
gives you a shot at a cup, but then you're saying I want to win this 1 year and then not have a really great future ahead of me. Because Hellebuck's not going to come at a cheap price.
I think it would be make more sense if the LA Kings
They're also
would
linked. The LA
made a
Kings
push
are
for it.
also linked to Matt Dumba. So I mean, there's a chance that the Kings, because they made a couple not very good moves this offseason. The Kings, they're still not a bad team, but
No, they're not.
they they gave up Cal Peterson. They basically went all in on the fact that they were going to resign Corpusalo, and then didn't resign him because Ottawa took him. So
Yep.
you're in a weird situation. And I mean, like I said, I'm excited to see what Ottawa and Buffalo are going to do next year, because I think both of them are going to be really good.
Do you think Chicago
Make
becomes
no
becomes good next year?
no. I this is already my prediction. 85 points for Connor Bedard. With 38 goals. Okay, that's my Connor Bedard prediction. 85 points with 38 goals. And they play better than anyone expected, but they don't make the playoffs. They finish like one spot out of the playoffs,
Okay.
like a ninth
Because
place or like a 10th place team.
I was going to ask you if they get a top three draft pick, are they in a spot where they get a
They
top three
they
draft
they're
pick
they're
for next
not going to be bad enough.
year?
I think they have a surprising season, but not a great season. Like they're just like, oh, okay, yeah. They'll go on a run at some point where you're gonna be like, wow, because Connor Bedard is gonna be, if he stays healthy, a McKinnon or McDavid level player. Like he's that good. So it's gonna be interesting. I would have much rather have seen him gone to Anaheim. I know I talked to this a lot before. Anaheim or San Jose, somewhere where he's gonna benefit hockey in that area, because like he doesn't do anything for hockey in Chicago. Chicago's going to be popular no matter what happens. This is just helps the NHL push product now.
Yeah. Um, Patrick Kane.
Oh, we forgot
He's
about
not.
Patrick Kane.
He's not signed with anybody
No,
yet, is he?
I don't. Unless he's going to take a flyer. I mean, unless he's going to take a cheap contract, I don't think anyone's going to take a flyer on him because
Because he's got a
he's
bad hip.
he's injury prone. He's not the same guy that he was. He played very poorly for New York Rangers last year.
Hmm.
Um, I think in the last two seasons, not that he's bad, he's a great player. The last two seasons, his play in Chicago doesn't actually show you anything because they were so bad. He was just always on the ice. Do you know what I mean? Like he always had the puck, so that's why he got a lot of points. It's not to say that he's bad, but I don't think it was a reflection of the player that he is now because he's a lot older. He's doesn't have that, and now with the hip injury, is huge.
It is.
And did he have the surgery? I don't even know.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, and if he whoever signs him, if he decides to have that surgery, you're losing him for almost a whole season.
Hmm. Perhaps like it could be career ending as well. Like,
Yeah. What about
going into
Jonathan
next.
Taves?
Sorry,
Go. What were you gonna say?
I was going to ask you a question, but yeah, no. Before I ask you the question, go for Jonathan Taves.
What do you think?
Uh, what was the question? Sorry.
What do you think Jonathan Taves is? Where does he go?
Oh,
What
I,
happens?
I, my understanding is that his health is so bad that he never fully recovered from COVID. Um, I don't know if the extra time will do him any good because he tried to attempt to come back, but uh, he just ended up being on the shelf again. I've never heard. I haven't heard any reports on if he's going to play next year.
I'd love to see him on Edmonton on the third line center.
Mm.
That's like my what I see. But I don't I agree with what you're saying. He'd also be a great fit in LA with that kind of team that they're building there.
Man, he'd probably look good in LA Kings jersey, man. I could see that. Um, but going into next season, overall, who do you think is going to feel the most pressure to win?
The Leafs.
Okay.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Because
I was going to say Edmonton too.
yeah, okay,
Um,
because of Connor McDavid. That I would say if
yeah.
you're gonna go east west, Edmonton and them, because like teams like Florida, they weren't expected to be as good as they were, so I can't really put that burden on them.
Agree.
Colorado, they won the cup, so I don't know if that pressure is there anymore.
Yep.
Carolina maybe because they've been so good for so long now. Like Boston regressed, so I can't see them having that much pressure. Any result for them that's positive is good. Like it's kind of up in the air at this point. But I would say maybe Leafs and Edmonton for sure. Tampa Bay is I'm calling it. I don't want to be this guy. They're not even making the playoffs next year.
That's an interesting take. I
Yep.
just don't think Vasilevsky is. I think Vasilevsky takes him to the playoffs. I just don't think they go far.
Okay,
If
that's
that makes
fair.
sense.
I think it really depends also on if Kucherov stays healthy for the whole season,
Which he never does.
right? But like if he can, if him and Vasilevsky both stay healthy all year, they'll make the playoffs, but not go anywhere. But I genuinely feel like next year is going to be a weird year for them, where everyone's going to be like, "What the hell happened to Tampa Bay?" Because they already didn't do well last year, and they made at the end of the season they had a run that got them into that playoff spot,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the division sucked after those three teams too. During the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
and they got even worse this year. They basically did not fill any of the holes,
Yeah,
and they
they lost a
can't.
few depth players.
Their contracts are so huge now. They're in like no man's land.
I think Stamkos kind of regresses a little bit. I think Brennan Point steps up a little bit. But they are not going to be the same team as they were a few years back. Just
No,
I don't see it. I don't see it.
it's we're nearing either a rebuild for them or a massive change. Like
Which
Stamkos is
is going to
out.
have to happen.
Stamkos is going to be out. Kucherov's going to be out. They're going to bring in a bunch of free agents and try to do a quick, like, fresh start. And people will play there, and they have money, so it's not like they can't, you know?
Oh yeah, I see people going to Florida, no problem.
Yeah.
Um, but
Anyways,
anyways.
I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else? All right, the guys, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and you know what time it is.